Welcome back to Atomic News, monitoring global chaos so you don't have to. U.S. President Donald Trump says he just had what he called a very productive phone call with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. And according to Trump, the conversation wasn't just about the war. It was also about what he described as future trade between the United States and Russia once the war is over. At the same time, quiet back-channel contacts appear to be underway. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff confirmed that American and Russian representatives recently held talks in Florida. The Russian side was represented by Kirill Dmitriev. Witkoff described the meeting as an opportunity to stay in touch and continue dialogue. But while diplomatic conversations are happening, Russia's economy is showing clear signs of strain. According to the Russian Finance Ministry, the country has already burned through most of its planned budget deficit for the entire year. In just the first 2 months of 2026, the deficit reached 3.4 trillion rubles, while the full-year target is 3.8 trillion. Even more striking, oil and gas revenues collapsed by roughly 47% compared to last year. And yet global markets may now be offering Moscow an unexpected lifeline. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, the price of Russian Urals crude oil has temporarily climbed above the benchmark Brent crude, something that rarely happens under sanctions. So, while Russia's budget is bleeding cash, rising oil prices could help slow the damage. But while rising oil prices may be giving Russia a temporary financial lifeline, Ukraine appears determined to make sure less of that oil ever reaches the market. Overnight, Ukrainian drones reportedly struck an oil facility in Tikhoretsk. Videos circulating online show thick smoke rising from the site after the strike. Local authorities confirmed that a fuel storage facility was attacked by drones, though the full scale of the damage is still being assessed. The location is not random. Tikhoretsk is one of the key fuel logistics hubs in southern Russia. The facility is connected to infrastructure operated by Transneft and sits along the Samara to Tikhoretsk pipeline corridor, a major route that redistributes oil and fuel towards southern Russia and Black Sea export terminals. In practical terms, disrupting nodes like this can interfere with the flow of fuel across an entire region, and this strike is part of a much broader campaign. Since the beginning of 2024, Ukraine has carried out around 225 strikes on Russia's oil and gas infrastructure. These attacks have targeted refineries, fuel depots, pipelines, offshore facilities, and even tankers linked to Russia's energy exports. In 2025 alone, analysts counted roughly 81 strikes on oil refineries, 27 attacks on maritime energy infrastructure, 8 strikes on pipelines, 4 attacks on tankers, making it the most intense year of Ukraine's campaign against Russia's oil industry. The effects have been significant. At several points in 2025, Ukrainian strikes temporarily knocked out up to 17% of Russia's refining capacity, or more than 1 million barrels per day. Some refineries required weeks or even months to repair. Energy analysts estimate that the attacks have already caused tens of billions of rubles in direct damage and far greater losses through disrupted production and exports. And while economic sanctions on Russian oil are slowly weakening, kinetic sanctions seem to be working just fine. Meanwhile, the Middle East is rapidly sliding toward a much wider conflict. Speaking at a rally, Donald Trump claimed that in just 11 days, U.S. military actions had practically destroyed Iran's capabilities. He also suggested that the United States may have already won the war, and predicted that oil prices could soon start falling.
We don't want to leave early, do we? We got to finish the job, right? Over the past 11 days, our military has virtually destroyed Iran. Tough country.
But events on the ground suggest the situation is far from over. In recent hours, the region has seen a wave of new attacks. The Iran-backed group Hezbollah launched more than 150 rockets toward northern Israel, marking one of the largest barrages since the escalation began. At the same time, attacks have also targeted key energy infrastructure and shipping routes in the Gulf. Oil storage facilities were hit at the port of Salalah, forcing parts of the port to suspend operations. And commercial shipping in the region is increasingly coming under threat. A tanker operating near the Strait of Hormuz was reportedly attacked, forcing crew members to evacuate. There have also been reports of explosions and strikes across the Gulf region, including incidents affecting Dubai. An Iranian naval drone boat reportedly struck the oil tanker Safsi Vishnu in the northern Persian Gulf, setting the vessel on fire and killing one crew member. The attack is part of a growing campaign against commercial shipping that has already targeted more than a dozen vessels since the conflict began. Just yesterday, we discussed the possibility that Russia could be helping Iran with drone warfare tactics developed during the war in Ukraine, and now CNN reports, citing Western intelligence sources, that this may already be happening. According to those officials, Russia has moved beyond general intelligence support and is now sharing specific battlefield tactics for Shahed drone attacks, including coordinated launches in waves, with multiple drones flying together and frequently changing course to overwhelm air defenses. These drones were originally designed by Iran, but are now mass-produced by Russia for use in Ukraine, turning the war there into a testing ground for modern drone warfare. Intelligence officials also say they are increasingly concerned about Iran's broader tactics in the Gulf, including the use of naval mines, sea drones, and even small fishing vessels to threaten U.S. carrier strike groups. In other words, while some politicians are already talking about victory, the reality on the ground suggests the conflict in the Middle East may only be entering its most dangerous phase. And while instability spreads across the Gulf, Europe is quietly preparing for the possibility that another war could erupt much closer to home. According to reports, Ukrainian military instructors will soon begin helping train soldiers of the Bundeswehr. Under the initiative, Ukrainian combat veterans will assist German troops in preparing for the kind of warfare that has defined the battlefield in Ukraine. That includes modern drone warfare, battlefield tactics against Russian forces, and lessons learned from 4 years of full-scale war. Germany has been rapidly expanding its military readiness since Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But Ukrainian forces now possess something that many European armies simply do not have: recent, large-scale combat experience against Russia's military. For decades, European militaries mostly trained for peacekeeping missions or overseas operations. Ukraine, however, has been fighting the largest conventional war in Europe since World War II, which means Ukrainian soldiers have accumulated hard-earned knowledge about Russian tactics, Russian equipment, and the brutal realities of modern high-intensity warfare. In other words, the country Russia expected to defeat in a matter of days is now helping prepare Europe for the possibility of facing Russia itself. This is Professor Nuke, and this was Atomic News. Stay alert.
So stay tuned for all the wondrous views. You're watching Atomic News.